there, I'm Felicia Saraceno with Everyday Senior News, Informed Trusted Advocates. Today, we are excited to have Amy Yonick here. And what she is going to be teaching us and kind of letting us in a little bit more in on is what she does, which is she's a certified conscious dying coach, educator, and death doula. So Amy, welcome.
Thank you, Felicia. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. We're very excited to have you here. This is a topic that's taboo for a lot of people. It gives folks a lot of anxiety. And I am so excited to have you here because the conversation that I had with Amy prior to this, it was a very loving, different type of a conversation. And I think this is something that we all have to be coached on because of maybe anxieties or fears that we might have. But we all know that there are two things in life that are certain: death and taxes, right? So Amy.
Yeah, I'm not so good with numbers, so let's talk about death.
Perfect. So I am really excited to have you here. Can you share with us what led you, to really actually stop that? So Amy, I'm really excited to have you here. Can you tell us what exactly is a certified conscious dying coach, educator, and death doula?
Yes. So all three are different things. So I got 3 different certifications. As a conscious dying coach, I was taught how to kind of help people look at their lives through the lens of their mortality. I've been a life coach for over 20 years now, and this just felt like a great match. When we look at our lives through the lens of our mortality, we have a much different perspective on what's important to us. So I help people get very clear about where they are in their life now, where they wish they could be or would like to be, and then help them to design an action plan to get from here to there. And as educator, I found that it is so important for us to understand more about the final chapter in our life. We have coaches that will coach us through pretty much anything: life coaches, business coaches, exercise coaches, at the ready. Everybody's a coach. But where are the coaches to help us understand what's going to happen to us in this final chapter of our lives? There's really no education there. So that's a really big part of my mission, is to educate people to try to take away some of that fear and anxiety for this inevitable experience that we all are going to have, and to kind of change the trajectory of how that impacts us on a generation to generation basis. And then finally, as a death doula, I sit with individuals at the end of their lives. I talk with their families. I help them to understand what they can expect. It is a completely non-medical, non-clinical role. I'm there as a spiritual guide, as an emotional guide, as somebody that can help answer questions about what can be expected, and just help people have a space to experience their emotions and understand that they're all okay. You've got a lot of dynamics at the end of life with a lot of different family members, and whatever's gone on in that family, as we know, it can be a little bit dicey, especially when there's high emotion. So having somebody there that is kind of on the outside, who can hold space for all of that, can again help to change the way that we look at end of life.
Absolutely. And I can say from previous experience in my former career as an executive director, I've seen a lot of my residents pass away, and families deal with it in various different ways. But one family I remember, there were the 2 daughters who were the co-POAs and advanced directives proxies, and then the son was the executor. So mom was actively dying, hospice was there, and the sisters were holding each of mom's hands, and brother is rummaging through all of her things to find her jewelry. And they were very upset. Everyone in the room was very upset over it. And when we kind of talked about it afterwards, he said, well, I know that mom was going to pass and I didn't want any have any valuables in her room for any of the people coming in and out once mom passes. So we all took it in a really negative way while he's looking at it as I'm trying to protect what was mom's. So it's very funny how you could look at something and get two completely different perspectives.
Yes. Yes. As is with life.
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about what led you to this.
It was completely unexpected. Most of the majority of the people in my cohort who I got my certification with have seen this as a life path. Things in their lives that have just led them to doing this kind of work. And I had nothing that would have led me to believe that I was going to become a death educator. So during COVID, the business that I had at that time just kind of stopped during lockdown. I went about a year without work. I became very frustrated because I am a purpose-driven individual and I didn't feel like I had any purpose. And my husband recommended that I go volunteer somewhere. And I figured, okay, sure, it's probably going to be the local animal shelter. But I was scrolling through a local website that told you about different volunteering opportunities, and I saw hospice volunteering. And it was quite literally a tap on the shoulder from something bigger than me that said, do that, go there. So I looked into it. I became trained as a hospice volunteer and I started sitting bedside with individuals at the end of their lives. And it was transformative. It was purposeful and meaningful. And I felt like I wanted more, but I didn't, I'm like, okay, I'll just volunteer more.
Wow, yeah.
And then Adam and I were in the airport. He was getting a tea. I was looking for a book. I found a novel. The main character was a death doula, and I went, wait a minute, what's that? And again, this charge through my body saying, do that, go there. So on vacation, I researched what's a death doula? How do I become a death doula? And that was in December of 21. And in January of 22, I started my certification. And that was that.
Wow, that's amazing. See, it's funny how life takes you down these different courses because you never know where you're going to lead. And you might have a really razor focused path in front of you. And then something like this pops up and completely changes your whole trajectory of your life.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I see the thread of what I'm doing and what I've been doing because I've always wanted to help people be proactive in their lives as opposed to reactive.
Mhm.
And that's where this is all coming from. This education portion of what I do is to help people, because when illness and death come, it becomes a crisis. And then you're reactive. And if you haven't planned, you're reactive with lots of high emotion. So if we can take a few steps back and start to having these conversations when we're not in crisis mode, then we can spend meaningful time considering, reflecting on what we want, what our loved ones need to know about what we want at end of life. And that makes it easier on them. And we have a more empowered experience because we were part of making those decisions.
Absolutely. And these are sort of questions that, as someone who's worked in the senior living industry for so long, we've weaved into the conversation because you always talk about, do you have your durable will and do you have your advanced directives? But, a lot of people relocate to Southwest Florida here from another part of the country or the world. And the other question that we have to ask is, do you have your end of life preparations set? And more times than I count, people say, yes. And I have my burial plot with my family up in Minnesota or New York or Wisconsin. And I say to them, great. What are you prepared for when that happens when you're living here? Because if you're going to be cremated or if you're going to have a burial, the two different types of burials that we do here, you still need to get a funeral home to help you from point A to point B. And in know that sounds really dark, but it is something that is overlooked, and you don't even think about it until you have been in a situation like I have, where we have to figure this out last minute. So it's always good to prepare and have that set forward. Another question that always pops up is, why do you think that people avoid even talking or planning about this?
Fear, definitely fear. Nobody likes to think about their inevitable end. But I also think it's because we don't necessarily fear dying. We fear getting to that point and not having lived fully. Getting there with regret. Getting there feeling like I didn't love as fully as I could have. I didn't fulfill my potential. I didn't say the things that I wanted to say. I didn't take risks. I didn't go on adventures. Like, you get to that end place, and if you haven't had that kind of life, you're in anxiety and regret. So if you're not, even currently, if you're not living in alignment with your values, with your priorities, you're in discord and it just feels off. So how can you consider all of that ending when you're not in alignment with why you're even here? So I think that's what the big fear is. Yes, I think there's fear about, will it hurt? How much of my independence am I going to lose? And will there be people there to help support me? Like, I think those are valid fears too, but I think the ultimate fear is getting to the end with regret.
And that's the thing, and you and I had talked about this probably a couple of weeks ago, but not, you touch on something really powerful, and it's not living in alignment with what you want for your life and how that creates discord in your life. That's huge.
Yeah.
And when we're young and you're just starting out, or you're in college and you're at grad school and you're just kind of starting out in your career, you're not thinking about this. But I think as we age and we get more mature and wiser, these things do pop up from time to time with us. And that's why people talk about those, midlife crises that you have. And that is to avoid this fear when it's time.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really powerful.
Yeah. And it's not, yes, it's people who are aging and who are maybe in the final quarter of their life who would, really benefit from having this conversation. But illness and crisis can happen at any age.
This is true.
So you need to be, I heard somebody say, if you're old enough to have a driver's license or a credit card, then you're old enough to have, your advanced directives and your power of attorney and have these conversations.
That's true. It's very true. Statistically, nationwide, 70% of real estate transactions do not have a will and do not have their advanced directives planned out. And I've noticed that with my own clients that I help too. And that's the first thing that I ask is, are we going to update your will post settlement? And that is how they go, what are you talking about? I don't have one. And if you own property, if you have children, you should have a will, because otherwise it goes to probate. And that's a whole nother avenue that we can go down, but we don't need to.
Yeah.
I want to jump back into this. Can you tell me more? You mentioned something about a 6-week program that you offer. Let's hear all about it.
Okay, so it's called the What Matters Most Workshop. It was created through the institute where I got my certification. So the Conscious Dying Institute out of Boulder, Colorado, created a program called the Best 3 Months. And we were given the freedom to take what we learned and create what we want from it. So I renamed it the What Matters Most Workshop. And basically what it is it's a 6-week program where we look at our lives through the lens of our mortality. And in the very first class, so the most important thing that we do in there is we create a sense of safety and opportunity for bravery, because that's what it's going to take in order for you to look at your life through your mortality. You're going to need to feel like you're safe enough to do that. Once we do that, I introduce the death date. So if we were to be beginning our course today on May 20th, May, June, July, your death date would be August 20th. So if we were doing the class and today was the first day, you would be assigned your pretend death date. And that would be August 20th. So everything that we do in the class for the next 6 weeks is going to be under the idea that you only have 90 days left to live. So we kind of divide your life into 5 areas. We've got your physical domain, where we consider what you want for your comfort care and your physical environment within that 90-day period. Your spiritual life, what's going to bring you comfort during those 90 days and towards the very end, whether it's your religion, your spirituality, meditation, whatever it is that brings you comfort. And if you don't know, this is why we're asking these questions. Your emotional life, that speaks to your relationship with your emotions, but also looks at your relationships in your life. And this seems to be a very juicy topic in the workshops, because I think we all have relationships that we're either estranged, or we wish were better, or need some cleaning up. So if you've got only 90 days to live, which are the ones that you're really going to pay attention to? Which are the ones that you want to make good on, or you want to find resolution, whether it's completing what needs to be completed or finding within yourself a sense of peace around that. And oftentimes it's your relationship with yourself that needs some attention.
Yeah.
We look at the practical side of end of life, like you've been talking about, advanced directives, power of attorney, after death care. How do you want your body disposed of? There are a lot of options out there. What kind of life celebration or traditional funeral do you want? And the final one, which is my favorite, is the legacy. So we get into, like, how do you want to be remembered? How do you want the people that you leave behind to keep you alive in their hearts and in their minds? And a lot of people go on to do legacy projects. I have one client who just wrote letters to her young children, her 7 and 10-year-old, because just in case something were to happen right now, she would want them to know how much she loves them, how proud she is of them. I've had other participants do letters that should be opened on particular occasions, like weddings and first grandchild and graduations,
Wow.
videos. So imagine, one of those fears of dying is leaving your family. Imagine there's a wedding and you open up this letter from your deceased mother, who is telling you, giving you all her wishes and reaching from beyond. Like, that makes her feel more present in that day. So there's a lot of fun stuff that we do that, can really help you to dig yourself into this conversation. But there's also, there's tears, there's joy, there's a lot of resolution that happens.
Absolutely. And that's a powerful, powerful tool to have, because we're all not going to live forever. And all of us, majority of us would love to be able to pass away when we're 100 years old, sleeping in our bed, right? That is the ultimate way. But unfortunately, that doesn't always happen. And so being able to really collect your thoughts, think of it ahead of time with a clear, concise method, and then, wow, to have those letters written, pre-written, just in case. I think that as a mother, that's invaluable. That's something invaluable that I could provide my child with, right?
Yeah. And as a kind of end product of the course, what we're doing during all of this is we're getting very clear about where we're at in each one of those areas of life currently, so our current reality, and then how we would like that to look. So if we only have 90 days left, what kind of changes would we like to make so that when we do get to the end, if our death date were real, what would give us the most peace? What would make us feel like we have completed our time here? And so you've got your current reality and your vision, and that's where the coaching comes in. Now we start to create actionable steps that you can take to help move you from where you are now to where you want to be. And that's the part of the course that is really magical, because if you start to align with those priorities as a result of doing the action steps, so far I haven't lost anybody on their death date. So you go on living, you go on living 90 days, 90 months, 90, whatever it might be. And now you know what's most important to you. And now you can honor that. And then when you get to the end, sometime very far away, you do it in this place of gratitude and joy and love, because you have lived your life in alignment with what's most important to you.
That is huge. I mean, this is so wonderful, and it isn't scary at all. And trust me, I have anxiety over death and dying, and it's actually comforting to hear you talk about this and speak about it. More people need to learn about it. So if somebody wanted to join your 6-week course, is it in person? Is it in Zoom? Like
It's virtual. It's all virtual. If somebody were interested now, go to my website, sign up for my subscription and just write workshop in there, and I'll let you know when the next workshop is.
That's great. And your website is
leavinginlove.com.
So leavinginlove.com, and then in subscription, you type in,
you put in your name and email, and then you can just write in the comments workshop.
Okay, perfect, because we're going to put that on the site.
Or whatever else you want to write. If you have other questions, I love talking about this with people, especially when people are ready to talk about it. I find that when I give people an opportunity to have these conversations, they're all in. They just need somebody to listen.
Yes.
Because as a society, we close off from this conversation.
Yes. I do feel that validity and just having that peace of mind of someone's listening to you, they hear you, they understand what you want to do with your life is so, so important. And I think, and I hate to say this, but a lot of this became true because of COVID. It happened because we were forced to look at other ways to communicate with each other. And we weren't always in that hustle and bustle because we were forced to live a different lifestyle. Absolutely. Well, this is amazing. And so if anyone wants to get in touch with you, once again, they could reach out to Amy at her website, leavinginlove.com.
Leavinginlove.com. That's the whole goal, is that when we get to that final day, that we can leave in this place of having loved our life, loved our people, loved ourselves, and that we leave in love.
That is so beautiful. I love this. This has been so informative. Thank you so much, Amy, for being here. And all right, so if you want to get in touch with Amy Yonick, please reach out to her. Her website is leavinginlove.com. Amy, we are so grateful to have you here today. Our network that we have happening here is all about providing informed, trusted advocates for everyday senior news. And we are really happy to have you here today talking about a really, really important topic, something that is very fearful for a lot of people, but it doesn't have to be. And this program that you offer and all of the information that you shared with us is so comforting. I'm so happy to have you here again with me today. So thank
Thanks,
you.
Felicia. Thank you.
All right. Well, stay tuned for our next podcast that will be coming up. And we are grateful for you to listen in. Thank you.